Hey everyone, and we are back for the episode 4 preview. Let's see what we can expect next week. So our episode begins with Cersei expositing to Tycho Nestoris of the Iron Bank on her plans for Westeros. Now the show has spent the past 3 episodes trying to depower Dany and giving Cersei some wins. She has maintained control over King's Landing, forged an alliance with Euron, rallied the Lords of Westeros, turned House Tarly, destroyed the Ironborn fleet, destroyed the rest of Dany's fleet, dealt with the Dornish, and conquered Highgarden and dealt with the Tyrells. Her winning streak is bound to come to an end soon though. Stories generally have characters experience up and downs. Cersei still of course has Jon and Dany to deal with, but I'm actually surprised by the return of the Iron Bank plot. They are another thorn in the side of the Lannisters, but they're also a potential ally. I will say there are at least 2 major plots from across the Narrow Sea that have been left unresolved. The first is the Iron Bank of Braavos. This plot was actually introduced very early in the first season and has been appearing sporadically ever since. The second major plot is that of the Red Priests, introduced by Melisandre in second season, but furthered with the Brotherhood Without Banners and the Zealots in Volantis and Slaver's Bay. Now, of course, there are other plots from across the Narrow Sea, like whatever happened to Illyrio and what are the Faceless Men really up to, but I'm not really sure those ones will ever be resolved. I do think, though, it's very likely that the Braavosi and the R'hllor followers may join the fight, though this might not happen until Season 8. Next we have Dany realizing that she's finally not in an overwhelmingly dominant position. She actually states all of her allies are gone. Now we have seen Highgarden taken, and the Tarlys are likely pacifying the Reach, and one can make an argument that the Reacher Lords never really hated the Lannisters and were simply bound to House Tyrell. But that's not really the case with Dorne, and I do wonder who's ruling Dorne at this point. There's actually only one scene in the entire show where we see non-Martell Dornish lords, and that's when they rudely pass Tyrion when they come to King's Landing for Joffrey's wedding in Season 4. They seem to share Oberyn's hostility towards the Lannisters, and since the Sand Snakes so easily took Dorne, it stands to reason that they share the Sand Snakes' view, that they should be fighting the Lannisters. So the Dornish lords should be hostile towards the crown and want to ally themselves with Dany, though I question whether the Dornish plot will ever be seen again. Now I think Dany's statement, "I'm losing," is still a bit much. At any point she can fly in and take King's Landing, probably single-handedly. She also still has her Dothraki and Unsullied, though without ships, moving them may be a challenge, though she still has a few ships. I suppose she could start ferrying people to the mainland. I do wonder where all her Dothraki are sleeping. Additionally, in Season 4, we find out that Dragonstone doesn't produce any food, so I'm not sure how Dany can feed anyone without ships bringing in food. I guess she just bought a crap load in Volantis and brought it over. Next we see Jaime bringing some covered wagons through a dry environment that looks much like the American Southwest. I can't help but be reminded of an old Western movie with a carriage robbery, and I guess that this is intentional. Jaime is seen transporting the Tyrell gold during his trip as well, so it looks like we're going to be treated to an old Western heist. This is juxtaposed with Tycho saying that Cersei will have the Iron Bank's support when the gold arrives. One big rule of storytelling is that an announced plan never goes accordingly, so it seems Jaime is definitely going to run into some trouble. Keeping with the Old West theme, I can definitely imagine Dothraki savages riding in on horses ululating as a stand-in for the Western movie Indian stereotype. And of course, we will likely see a dragon come as well. In the trailer, we saw Lannisters battling Dothraki and Dothraki with a dragon, and we saw Jaime riding through a field of fire jousting near a puddle of water. I imagine that water will save our main character's life. The big question is if Bronn will survive. Every episode somebody dies. Perhaps it'll be a Tarly, but they're still rather minor characters. Maybe the death will be up north with Littlefinger, who is probably a goner soon, but I think there is a chance that Bronn will die. The Lannister winning streak must come to an end soon, and losing both the gold and his only friend would be that punch in the gut that the show likes to give Jaime over and over again. Next we get a shot of the famous Valyrian dagger, the one used by the Catspaw in an attempt to kill Bran. Now, as you guys may know, I've put a lot of time into researching the attack on Bran and the dagger in both book and show, so the dagger appearing is rather interesting for me. If you haven't seen my 2-part series, Killing Bran, please check it out. I'll leave a link below. Now in the book, after the attack, the dagger is brought to King's Landing by Cat, who passes it to Ned. Littlefinger then gets control of it and puts it up to Ned's throat during his attempted coup, and then Littlefinger begins to wear it brazenly, flaunting it in front of Tyrion. And then we don't know where it went. It's still likely with Littlefinger. He was seen eating with a dagger in the fingers, but we're not sure if it's the same dagger. Now, as for the culprit who hired the catspaw, in the book we're told that Joffrey hired the catspaw to impress his dad and picked the dagger mistakenly. However, there are many problems with that story. It should be noted that Littlefinger or Mance Rayder had the most to gain from hiring the catspaw, that is, creating a feud between the Starks and the Lannisters at that moment of our story. I get into all of this in my Killing Bran series. Now, in the show, we last see the dagger on Ned's desk in the Tower of the Hand. It's certainly possible Littlefinger took the dagger like he did in the book, but we haven't seen it since season 1. That is, unless you count the picture of it that we saw in Sam's book a couple episodes ago. Now, it is a pretty big coincidence that we have both the victim, that is Bran, and the dagger coming back into our Winterfell story at around the same time. Season 1 has been referenced over and over this season, often ham-fistedly. It seems pretty likely that once again, someone will try to kill Bran with that dagger. Now, I'm not sure whose hands those are, but Littlefinger is known to wear rings, though usually more rings. And we have seen pictures from Entertainment Weekly showing Arya with the dagger. So I would say it's pretty darn likely that Littlefinger will try to kill Bran and will be stopped by Sansa and Arya, who will then kill Littlefinger. Sansa as a stand-in for Cat, as she always is, Arya as a stand-in for Summer, and Littlefinger as a stand-in for the catspaw. I suppose Littlefinger would have a motive to kill Bran, as Bran is releasing way too much information about everything. Littlefinger having a greater motive, like helping the Night King or something, would be far too interesting for the show. Now, there is a question of whether or not this relates to the first attempt on Bran back in Season 1. I would guess no, that it's only a literary parallel. That said, we haven't been told in the show who sent the catspaw to kill Bran. It very well might have been Littlefinger. We then get a scene with Dany saying no more clever plans, which implies there will be a blunt strike on the Lannisters, again, almost certainly Jaime. And we did see Dany on her dragon in a battle in the trailer, so it looks like she'll be there. And again, we have our Western-style covered wagons, this time a better shot, and it seems to be before they've made it into the Old West environment. That's off in the distance. We see someone lighting a torch of some sort. Jon is later seen with a torch, so I imagine this is Jon. He's perhaps showing off the dragonglass mines. I'm not sure what surprises the mines could have that would warrant a scene. Either there is a whole bunch of glass and we get a scene of it shining, or it's hard to get to, or perhaps they find something else down there, like dragon eggs. It's hard to say. We then get Pod knocked down again. He really hasn't been up to much this season. I feel like they need to do something with him soon. I'm not sure if he's going to be part of the Fellowship that goes north, but he has been utterly useless since, well, Season 2. We next get Theon coming ashore. I imagine this is his return from his near-death experience at sea. We know that Jon and Theon have a brief altercation this season on Dragonstone. I think it'll happen soon after this scene. We can kind of see where the Theon plot is going. It's all building up to a rescue of his sister. This calls back her failed rescue of him back in Season 4, and makes Euron a proxy for Ramsay that Theon can face and overcome his turmoil. I certainly hope Euron will survive well into Season 8 though. We then get Jon, Dany, and what looks to be Missandei in the back, walking into a cave. I'm trying to think of why they need to show these three characters going into these caves. Perhaps a character will fall and another character will save them or something. Or maybe they're trying to call back the romance between Jon and Ygritte in their cave, though Missandei in the back would be a third wheel to all of that. And then we get Littlefinger's face, perhaps before an attack on Bran. Brienne training, again being useless with Podrick. Arya at Winterfell, likely to rescue Bran just in the nick of time. And then we have Sansa reading over some letters. Now, many people have been speculating on the weird look that Littlefinger gave after hearing about Maester Luwin's letters. What mysteries could be in them? Well, there are quite a few possibilities. Perhaps Luwin was writing people about Jon Snow and that's why he encouraged him to join the Watch. Or perhaps there's information in there about a potential Maester conspiracy. Maybe. None of that would relate to the Sansa and Littlefinger story, though. With regard to Sansa, we do have that letter that Cersei forced her to write, but any idiot would know that Sansa was under duress when writing it. There's also Lysa's letter to Cat telling her the Lannisters murdered Jon Arryn, but that letter was burned, and in the book it was written in secret code. Now perhaps Luwin opened it, copied it, and resealed it, but that would be pretty sneaky of him. So what exactly could be important in these letters is beyond me. And the trailer ends with Drogon and a tiny little Dany right on top of him. I imagine this is right before attacking Jaime. And that's the preview for episode 4. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.